officially charged with killing Anna.
An indictment claims Timothy Hudson is a danger to society, yet he's still not behind bars. Fox 35's Marie Ettinger's hearing from experts who say Hudson should be in jail right now.
A magistrate official.
November 7th, 2025. Somewhere in the darkness of the Gulf of Mexico, the Carnival Horizon was moving steadily toward Miami. Inside the ship, everything looked normal. Passengers were asleep. Hallways were quiet. Cabin doors were closed. And the massive vessel continued its routine journey like nothing was wrong. But inside one cabin, something had already gone wrong hours earlier. An 18-year-old girl, Anna Marie Kepner, was missing. No clear explanation. No immediate alarms. No public signs of what had happened. Just confusion spreading slowly through a family on what was supposed to be the final day of a vacation. And by the time the ship reached Miami, the FBI would already be waiting. Because this would no longer be treated as a missing persons case. It would become a federal homicide investigation inside a floating city at sea. And the first major question investigators would face was simple but chilling. How does someone disappear on a crowded cruise ship without anyone noticing? Welcome to Truth Finder of Fees. In today's case of the day, we are breaking down the Anna Kepner case, the FBI investigation, the sealed juvenile proceedings, the federal charges, and the unanswered questions that continue to follow this case. Before we begin, subscribe and tell us where you are watching from. Now, let us get into it.
Dead in a Carnival cruise ship cabin, her 16-year-old stepbrother has been indicted as an adult by the U.S. Department of Justice.
He's certainly looking at a maximum potential sentence of life in prison.
Former federal prosecutor David Haas explained how the DOJ could have found dead.
Anna Marie Kepner was 18 years old at the time of her death. She lived in Titusville, Florida, a quiet community along the state's east coast. People who knew her described her as energetic, social, and outgoing. She was involved in school activities, including cheerleading, and reportedly spoke about a future working with military K-9 units. To friends and classmates, she was seen as someone full of life and direction. Nothing about her public life suggested that she would later become the center of a federal homicide investigation. But what makes this case so difficult for many people is exactly that contrast. Ordinary life, followed by an extraordinary tragedy. On November 2, 2025, Anna and her blended family boarded the Carnival Horizon in Miami for a 6-night Caribbean cruise. The ship was enormous, functioning almost like a floating city. It contained restaurants, pools, entertainment venues, shopping areas, casinos, and hundreds of cabins spread across multiple decks. Thousands of passengers were on board. For most people, the experience felt like complete separation from everyday life. Once the ship left port, routines shifted quickly into vacation mode. The cruise itinerary included stops in Cozumel, Ocho Rios, and Georgetown. At this stage, nothing appeared unusual. It was simply a family vacation at sea. One detail later became important during the investigation. Anna shared a cabin with her 16-year-old stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. At the time, this arrangement was not publicly considered unusual or suspicious. It was simply part of the family travel setup. Night of November 6th into November 7th, 2025. As the cruise entered its final night, the atmosphere aboard the ship shifted. Passengers began preparing for the return to Miami. Suitcases reappeared outside cabin doors. Public areas became quieter. People started thinking about flights, work, and leaving the ship. According to later reports, Anna experienced discomfort related to her braces earlier that evening. Family members also stated she was briefly seen in the casino area before returning toward the cabin. That would later become one of the last known public moments connected to her timeline. After that, the timeline becomes unclear. Investigators would later attempt to reconstruct what happened using witness statements, ship records, and surveillance footage. But there are still gaps in the publicly available sequence of events. At some point during the night, something happened inside the cabin Anna shared with Timothy Hudson. Exactly what occurred has not been fully presented in public court proceedings. And that is still part of what makes this case unresolved in the public eye. By morning, Anna was missing. When Anna did not appear the next morning, concern slowly began to grow among family members. At first, it was treated like a normal misunderstanding. Cruise ships are large, and people often move separately without immediate contact. But as time passed, concern turned into urgency. A search began. That search eventually led back to the cabin. According to multiple reports, Anna's body was discovered concealed beneath a bed inside the room. This discovery immediately escalated the situation from a missing person case to a death investigation. The ship, still at sea, was now the center of a developing federal case. In later accounts, Anna's father described attempting to check for signs of life before emergency responders arrived. While other passengers continued their morning routines on board, the situation behind that cabin door had already changed everything. Because the incident occurred in international waters aboard a U.S.-linked vessel, federal authorities took jurisdiction. When the Carnival Horizon docked in Miami on November 8th, FBI agents boarded the ship to begin their investigation. The medical examiner later ruled Anna's death a homicide caused by mechanical asphyxiation. Investigators then began reconstructing timelines using witness statements, digital evidence, and surveillance records. Attention later shifted toward Timothy Hudson based on investigative findings referenced in court reporting. However, much of the evidence remains sealed or not publicly disclosed in full detail. Because Timothy Hudson was a minor at the time of the incident, early proceedings were handled under juvenile protections. This meant large portions of the case were not immediately accessible to the public. During this period, online speculation increased rapidly. Social media platforms and true crime communities attempted to reconstruct timelines, motives, and events. However, much of that discussion mixed verified facts with unconfirmed theories. What remained consistent was public uncertainty. Very little official information was available during the early stages of the investigation. In February 2026, Timothy Hudson was formally charged in federal court. Federal prosecutors later requested that he be tried as an adult despite his age. This legal move significantly increased public attention on the case. Prosecutors argued that the seriousness of the allegations justified adult prosecution under federal standards. Hudson later entered a not guilty plea in court. At the same time, reporting indicated he was released under electronic monitoring while awaiting trial, which became a subject of public debate. Some questioned the decision to allow pretrial release. Others emphasized the legal presumption of innocence. The case became both a legal and public controversy. Anna's family later held a celebration of life service in Titusville. Attendees were reportedly encouraged to wear bright colors in her memory. As the legal case progressed, the situation reportedly placed strain on the blended family. What began as a shared vacation had become a deeply painful and complex legal situation. The federal trial was later delayed after defense attorneys requested additional time to review evidence. The case was rescheduled toward September 2026. As of now, no conviction has occurred. The defendant remains legally presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. The case is still active and ongoing. The Anna Kepner case continues to draw attention because it combines several elements that deeply affect public perception. A cruise ship setting, a family environment, a sealed juvenile proceeding, federal homicide charges, and a timeline that still has unanswered gaps. It also raises broader questions about safety, jurisdiction, and investigation challenges in maritime environments. But despite the attention, many core questions remain unresolved in the public record. And until the trial concludes, the full truth of what happened aboard the Carnival Horizon remains something only the court system can definitively answer. And that is where the case currently stands. A cruise vacation that began like any other ended in a federal homicide investigation, sealed court proceedings, and questions that still remain unanswered in the public record. Anna Kepner's death is no longer just a story people stumbled across online. It has become an active case moving through the federal court system, with evidence still being examined and a trial still ahead. And until that trial concludes, the full truth of what happened inside that cabin on the Carnival Horizon is something only the courtroom will ultimately decide. But cases like this always leave something behind long after the headlines fade. Questions, debates, and people trying to understand how something like this could happen in such a controlled environment, surrounded by thousands of passengers at sea. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think incidents like this change how people see cruise travel? Or is this just an isolated case being heavily followed because of how unusual it is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to subscribe to Truth Finder Fees for more carefully structured true crime stories built on verified information and real timelines. And as always, tell us where you're watching from. Until the next case.
The case may be closed, but the story never forgotten. Thank you for watching Truth Finder.